Welcome everybody to 2013, and we're still on schedule to do a program every month, and that's sometimes kind of difficult to come up with. So if any of you have good programs that you'd like to see us do, please come forward to Greg or to me, and we'll see what we can work out. I'm really excited about our today's program. This is something, usually I come up here and I know a little bit about what we're talking about. But what we're talking about today, I don't know anything about, so it's all a learning experience to me. I'd like to introduce Dan Fulenwider. Dan is an excellent historian, goes by many hats. I guess, Dan, your main interest is in Confederate history, but just all history, I think. He writes for the Cullman Tribune, and Dan, I guess we got started with this with me going out to Convent Road all those years and wondering what the history was on that rock house over there. That's really about all I knew about it. And Dan and I were talking one day, and he says, "Well, I know a good bit about it." So we kind of had gotten together to put together a program. As Dan is saying, this is a work in progress. So we have several people here today, family members, who should have something to contribute to building up the history on this. So Dan, I'm going to let you come on up and we'll just get started and see what else you and I can learn.
Well, I'm glad to be with y'all today. It's been a while since I've been here. My Sunday afternoons are pretty well tied up now because I do work at the lighthouse and I go in at 5 on Sundays. So I get to spend 40 hours a week out at the lighthouse. And the old rock house there that the early German family built. And those walls, let me tell you something, that's a well-built house. Those walls are that big, just right at where you go in the front door. And I read where the early settlers of Cullman County built a lot of them, the wood houses, but when the Germans came and they built these rock houses, they built the houses state. And this is like Dr. Hoehn says, work in progress. I got interested in this when I started working there in the old rock house, and I knew that it was all I knew about it years ago. And I think Fred Opp is the one that told me back years ago, and that all he knew about it, it was a German house, and I think he told me probably a little bit of the history of it. He knew Fred Opp, he's lived everywhere and knows everybody, it seemed like. So he knew some of the families. I talked to him during this too, and in 1870, in the early 1870s, Colonel John G. Cullman wrote George Charles Hoehn, and he was living up north at the time, and invited him down to the German colony of Cullman. And Mr. Hoehn came down in 1874, and I get this from the family members there. And Mrs. Thomas was a Schlosser. She was not able to vacation in Florida. It was a good time to be down there, I think, is what we've had up here. But he came down in 1874 to see if that's what he wanted to do and to move his family down here. And he decided that it was. So Mr. Hoehn came down here in 1876. And according to the land records I looked at in Cullman Courthouse, John Cullman deeded that land, or granted the land to Mr. Hoehn in 1876. So Mrs. Thomas and her husband and son there, they still live on the original property that Mr. Hoehn got in 1876. I think that is it. Back right here. This right here is the lighthouse. The little rock house, of course, right out here you see is the dog pound, if you make that out. Right up here is the school, where the primary school parking lot. Right here is where Mr. and Mrs. Thomas lived. From here, and I went to Julie over to Cullman County Museum. Looked this up on the internet, and this right here from Hoehn Drive here the driveway where it begins to go into Miss Thomas's place to the lighthouse is 2/10 of a mile. It looks farther than that, but it's not. I had no idea going into work that the school was right up here. It seemed to me like you drive around the world to get to it. But it's only 2/10 of a mile. And right up here, the creek comes back this way, and I don't.
It's a little off the picture.
Anyway, the old original rock house was up here that George Charles Hoehn built for himself. And you have a picture of it. You have this picture. This is the original rock house he built sometime shortly after 1876, because he began work on the house as soon as he got here and for his family. And his great-granddaughter, Mrs. Thomas, lived there until she married in 1952. She never did know her great-grandfather, but she knew, of course, her grandfather and her great-aunts, and she was telling us out there with a visit with them that, you know, she used to love that place and stay out there with her great-aunts and all. They were a close family, and we have a picture of the house. Mr. Hoehn came over from Mühlbach, Germany. He was born there, and I think it was 1868. Now, I wrote this, but I don't remember sometimes.
He did. He had a son born in 1867 in Germany, and then the next son was born the next year in New York.
Okay.
In 1868. So.
That was Rudolph, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so. And then he stayed up there, and then he went to Illinois. It was Sandwich, Illinois.
Yep.
And then came down to Cullman. And all right, this is the family right here. And on your, if you have this picture of the sheep, it'll give you who they were. I don't know. Let me look here. I can only go through this a little bit here. This is Mr. Hoehn, George Charles Hoehn. He had received at least, like I said, 2 letters from John Cullman himself inviting him down here, which is remarkable in itself to think about one of the original German families, even though it wasn't one of the 5, but he was here in 1876.
What I understand from that situation was that as he's building this town up, he needed certain trades, and
Yes.
stonemason was one of them. That's why he was specifically
right.
recruiting him.
Yeah, that's true. He was a stonemason. He built the house that he lived in, and as far as I can tell, he built the lighthouse as well. I know that in 1889, the land where the lighthouse is now, according to what I found, the courthouse was in Rudolph's name. And Rudolph later, of course, moved to Birmingham and worked for the railroad.
Can you explain a little more about the lighthouse?
Yeah, I don't know what the lighthouse is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, y'all know where it is. If you go, you know where the dog pound is. Okay, you turn to go to the dog pound, there's a big house right there on the left. It's got a porch now. It was not originally had a porch, but it's made out of rock. It's a rock house.
Yeah.
Okay, that is it. And right, this is it right here. Now it's back, of course, it's been changed. It's got a porch added on and stuff, but you see the rock work here, up here.
That's the brother's house.
What is it called, the lighthouse?
Well, the lighthouse is right now it's being used as a halfway house or drug addicts and alcoholics. And, it's out by the dog pound. Out by the dog pound. Convict Road.
Okay, convict road.
And trying to go to the dog pound to the left. Yeah. And then it's right there, it's a house right there before the dog pound.
It's not too far from the entrance of the Sacred Heart Convent.
Yes.
Past the entrance and it's sitting right there on the left.
Now I want you to
Past
look,
Oak Street and it's sitting right there on the left.
I want you to look at this rock work. See, that's amazing rock work. And this, I can tell you, working there, this house is still a sturdy house, a very well-built house. And it was built sometime shortly after 1876. because we know that he would have started building a big, well, no, I'm sorry, this one was built a little later. His original house was built, but this one would have been built in the, probably the 1880s, maybe 1890. This is
Anybody
similar,
know a date on it?
I'm not certain of the date, I know it was built for a brother that ended up going to Tacoma.
okay,
And then it
okay.
ended up
It
going
was
to.
built for,
Casper.
Casper.
Casper was the one, the brother that went to Tacoma.
And then it ended
That
up,
was, okay, George's brother. The
Right,
whole
yeah,
original.
that's right,
Okay,
George's
see,
brother.
that's something I didn't, now that's why we're glad y'all, like I said, this is a work in progress.
and then it ended up becoming a Slosser.
So Mr. Hoehn, probably he and maybe his brother built it. So, and, now the Richter home out, east of here, on 278, built just like this. Now, I don't know if they built that or not, but the rock work is exactly the same.
Got
And,
just a couple pictures of that, and just go through them, just kind of showing different sides.
okay, this is amazing rock work. And, Mr. Hoehn was also, like you said, a rock mason. He, this is rock work he did. He also did some work, according to Mrs. Thomas, out at St. Bernard on the original 1891 building. And you can go out there and look around the bottom. This is the grave.
I'll run to St. Bernard while you're, talking about it.
Okay. All right here, you see this rock work. This is the original 1891 building.
This is Boniface Hall, the back of Boniface Hall.
Yeah. So Mr. Hoehn would have built, according to what I've learned, he put this together, this work here.
Did you build the barn out behind that?
He built the original halls, rock halls. I'm not sure about the barn though. We do have the original, payout books that he used where he paid his sons for doing the work.
At the original
At
building.
St. Bernard,
Yeah.
we still have them.
Well, I know this one was built in 1891, and that would have been perfect. It's timing for him to be there. And he paid his sons to help him do it. See, that, I went out there to the college this week trying to verify, to get some information on if they really had any records of who built that in 1891. Nobody knew. I talked to Albert Victor Clark, he couldn't remember.
Grandma Slosser worked in the library at St. Bernard, and when they did a refit of the library one year, they gave her most of that information, and that's how we ended up with it.
See, we need to get a copy, if we could, that's history right here in this county, we need records, if you don't mind.
I'll see if I can.
We'd
dig it out
appreciate
for you.
that here in the Cullman County Historical Society.
That just kind of puts it in different perspective. You wanna go back to?
Now, all this is added, but this is the only original, the 1891 bill, okay, we can go back.
Could you go back that picture and name the individuals in it?
Sure,
Where are they buried?
this is a Catholic cemetery. Yeah, and there's right there the drive, the drive's through it. It's right here on the left if you're going east, west, coming east to be on the right. And that's the mother, Ms. Hoehn, and this is Mr. Hoehn here. And,
1840 to 1917.
17.
Going back to the family picture.
Okay. Okay, this is Mr. Hoehn, this is Mrs. Hoehn. I'll just read you what I got here.
They're named on here too, if somebody doesn't want to write them down.
Yeah.
They're named underneath this little picture on there.
All right, this is Andrew. This is Rudolph Casper.
Yeah, I'm on
And
Nelly.
he's the one, okay, and then, Mary Frances. This is Mrs. Hoehn here. And, of course, Mr. Hoehn. And then we've got, back rows Albert and Alphonse, Wilhelmina, Lena, Joseph, and Adolph. Now, if I remember Mrs. Thomas, when she was telling me, I think she spent a lot of time with these two girls here. And She lived down there in a big original rock house herself, like I said. I remember her telling me that she used to enjoy staying with them.
Which one is Ferdinand? I didn't, did you call it another name?
No, it's,
Ferdinand is right, let me do it.
The last one on the right.
The last one on the right.
Yes, this is Ferdinand here,
He's on the first row.
front row, yeah, I'll get it right.
Maybe look at this man's hand, you see how large his hand is?
Yeah, this is
I know
Ferdinand.
about it. I know about his name.
This is William Henry. Yes, okay.
Ferdinand is not very good.
What's left of the original house, Dan?
Hey, you know, I've not been out there. I wanna go, Dr. Beeler, I think, owns that land. And if you know Dr. Beeler, maybe you can get us.
Get us out there to wander around. Do y'all know if any foundation or
I
anything?
was just out there.
Oh, were you?
Probably a month or so ago. I just wandered upon it,
Okay.
it's out its corner. And, the original, one of the original corners is still there, about 35 feet high.
Oh, is it? Okay.
There's some interior walls. It was a rather large structure in its day. There's still a rooftop from one of the outbuildings that's there, one of the outbuildings is there. Of course, the dam, which you have pictured here, is still out there on the creek where they used to bathe and swim. The wash house, portions of the wash house are still there.
I should have wandered up there and got some pictures.
So it's a site, and of course, it's all covered with ivy.
Right.
And Mama Nellie sold the entranceway with the rocks where you came into the garden area. I'm still there.
No, I don't know when it burned or destroyed. Any of y'all remember the house?
I do.
You do?
I spent the night in there for that.
Okay. I had heard Dan had mentioned it was a large house.
It was real large. And it was amazing, like you said, seeing how they did those bricks. I don't know where they came from. You know, the big stones and everything. It was, it's like a puzzle. You can see, pick one of them, put them together like it. They wasn't all shaped even. They were just, as the rocks were, they were put in there. I guess there's still some of them like that over now.
Like I said, there's still a large 35-foot high corner section that's there that you can go look at it, and it's pretty amazing. The rock came out of the riverbed there. below.
Did you just go up the creek till you got to it? Is that the way you got to it?
No, I came across the property. I actually went up and over the logs and through the weeds.
How
I
are
wouldn't
you
suggest.
connected to which of these folks are you folks descended from?
Ferdinand was my granddaddy.
Okay.
Okay, I am Mary Ellen Slosser, which is Mary Ellen Hoehn,
Yes.
grandson.
Okay.
Charles, William up here, I think is the brothers. Alphonse, oh, okay, Alphonse, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I'm the Hoehn the Texas Hoehns, Albert up in the back corner. He went to the railroad and.
So all the land where the lighthouse is, all the way back to the primary school was your land?
Yeah.
From Convent Road?
This map that they were kind enough to print off shows what the property originally was.
Did they ever say how many acres were altogether?
I did, but I don't remember. It's been a few years.
And we took, a friend of mine, GPS and went out to the lighthouse, and after I went to the courthouse and got all the, information there on the township range and sections and all, and it bore out when we pulled up at the lighthouse that it was right where the land, said it was the courthouse. But you can see, from the map a while ago where it was just 2/10 of a mile from where they lived.
That really surprised me that it backed
It
up to
did,
the
I mean,
primary
it
school.
did, I had no
realize it.
idea.
Yeah, that's the narrow side of it.
Yeah, this is a better picture here from showing the lighthouse here. And this is some little city buildings. The dog pound, of course, and it comes up behind us here, and got some buildings here. And then right here's where Mr. and Miss Thomas live. And this is Hoehn Drive. They live on Hoehn Drive. And this is the primary school parking lot. And this is a big section of woods, and like he was talking.
When you say the lighthouse, you're not saying a lighthouse, you're saying this place is for people who are getting rehabilitation, they named it the lighthouse.
They named it the
Okay.
lighthouse, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you're talking about the building that used to be one of the Hoehn.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I got it.
What did y'all refer to it as? One of the,
That was,
Slosh-
it was a Slosser home. for
Schlosser
years.
home
It
is
was,
what y'all
uh,
referred to it as.
Yeah, you want to concern them.
Yeah, the Slossers lived there later. And,
When you
It
were
was my
referring
grandfather's
to the Franklin Primary School in that area, did you have Keller name, like Baker's there?
I don't remember that. I was just looking at the books, I was just looking. Yeah, the lighthouse is just what this building is called today. That's the name of it today, as a halfway house.
Yeah, because we were trying to figure out why a lighthouse would be out there in the middle of it.
Yeah, I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
got it.
But anyway, it's amazing to see that all of this was Mr. Hoehn's original land.
Do some of the Hoehns still own some of that land?
Well, yeah, they do. They still live
I
on the
understand there's
original.
an Ellis family that still was married to a Hoehn that still owns the farm.
All of them are owned by my grandfather.
All of them still own.
All of them is owned by my parents.
Okay.
This is owned by Dr. Baylor because when Dr. Baylor came in, the city asked Mary Ellen, and Mary Ellen came back and said, yeah, we need another doctor in town, and he sold that property to Dr. Baylor. But all of this land from Oak Street all the way back is owned by my parents.
Okay, but there wasn't Charles Ellis that said that he had gotten some of it.
Now,
Actually, my brother owns this section right here. And there's one on the little section.
Square.
Because he wouldn't release it when the parents put it all back together.
and at some point, I think it may have been in the 1920s, and y'all may know this, when the city of Cullman bought that and put up the dog pound. And seemed like I remember it being in the 1920s. Y'all know who sold it to the city?
It'd have been in the 20s, it would have been the children,
Yeah, it's not-
because Charles and Marie would have been dead by then.
Okay. Okay. See what we got next. Okay.
Just kind of running back through the features of that house.
I love that. I mean, I can't get over that rockwood. Listen, I want to tell you something right quick. I work there in the summer nights after I get everybody in bed and I'm there by myself. I'll go out and I'll walk around the gardens and I'll look at that old rock and I think about it. And then when I get up in the morning and I fix their breakfast, I think about the German family, the Hoehns that were there so many years ago. That house, this is parts of 3 centuries that house has been there, late 1800s now. Parts of 3 centuries, and I think about what they were doing, you know, in these mornings, and cold winter mornings. It's just the love of history. It's just, you know, it's amazing to me.
Okay, now what else I've got is, we talked about St. Bernard. Now this is the Richter house. I talked to Kay and Johnny and Tim. None of them know who built the house. Dan and I were just talking about the similarities.
It's just exactly like, I've been out to the Richter house and went through it myself. Because when I started doing research on the lighthouse, I found a picture of the Richters in front of this house. And I thought, well, okay, I found out who it is. It's the Richter. But it was not. It was the Hoehns when I went to the land records. But John Richter, I don't know if he's still pastor over here at St. John's or not, but anyway, John took me through the Richter home and shared history of it. And the Richter home was built in 1898.
See it right up there.
Yes, right here, 1898. So I think this would have been built after the Hoehn homes.
20 years later.
Yeah. And, but it just does make you, like Dr. Tyner said, they're so much alike, it makes you wonder if maybe the same ones didn't build, you know.
I'm sure the stone probably came out of the same quarry.
Yeah, I mean, there's too much similarities, you see, everything's just remarkable. Exact. And William F. Richter, of course, is the one that built this home.
Leo, you wanna comment on this? Leo Schweiger back here, ones of you haven't known, Leo, came and did a program for us one day about all the Schweiger built rock houses in Cullman. And Leo was a mason, still active, and, Leo, we were talking about the different styles of rock work as far as, working out the rock joint, the mortar joint versus not, etc. And got any comment on all that?
Well, each stonemason developed their own style, and we developed that style of joint.
Leo, can you come up here so we can all hear you? We maybe can't.
You mind stepping up here, Leo? We just welcome you in the front.
Because he can put some information on you.
I was trying to get back to the St. Bernard picture now. I messed up.
My grandfather came to this country in the early days of Cullman, and he was a stonemason, and he built, did a lot of the stone work on the buildings across the highway from Cullman Savings Bank, and those buildings, some of that stonework still shows, others have been veneered. And he also built the old mule barn, which was torn down, and my brother and I used some of those stone to build a base for the Colonel Cullman statue. And my brothers and I, we have been in stone business. I started working, first work I did was for Bill Bittner at the age of 14 for 10 cents an hour. I built the stone walls in his basement. And I started then. We built a number of buildings around here, the Henry Richter House, and I built the stonework for the Big Abbey Church at St. Bernard. My father worked on the Sacred Heart Church. I didn't build any of this.
Do you think that was Schweiger built on the right?
No.
None of this was.
No, that's Frank and Herman Schaefer.
Did the later part on the right?
Yes.
Okay.
The families that were prominent in stonework back when I was coming up were the Schweigers and the Schaefers. It was Frank and Herman Schaefer, later Joe and Charlie Schaefer, and then my whole bunch worked on many buildings around Cullman. But Dr. Bill asked me if I knew about the Hoehn house. No, I don't. That was before my time. I guess I'm older than anybody in here, but I still am not old enough to know that. I'm 87. But anyway, I've been fortunate. I'm still working. I work at Ave Maria Grotto, building the miniature buildings since Brother Joseph died. And I've done a lot of stone work around St. Bernard. The later years is my work. And the Richter house out on adjoining Interstate 65 was built before my time. Now, if my grandfather had anything to do with it, I don't know. He built a number of buildings that we don't know about. But I do know that he did a lot of stone work around Cullman. He was recruited in here by Colonel Cullman too.
How did you do the joint on that when the mortar's showing? Now, Dad would build buildings where he would put up a form, put his rock and the concrete in it, and so when you took the form off, you saw some of the rock, but a lot of it you just saw the concrete. This wasn't done with a form. This was just the mortar was rubbed.
Yeah. Well, it's really not a very good mortar job there, it's smeared. I wouldn't want that one on my record.
Is that Richter house the one that back in 1940s was Richter's floors?
That's the one that my brother and I built for Henry Richter.
That's a different house.
That's a
This
different house.
house is out past the interstate on
It's the
two
one that
seventy-eight,
you're going,
John Richter.
yeah, it's got a round tower out in front.
The one you're talking about over, not far from here.
Henry Richter's house.
Yes.
Next to Ninth Street.
Yes, my brother and I built that one. He could slick it off on me. He told me, he said, I'm better at building straight walls. He said, I'm faster at it, we can get it done faster. He said, you go ahead and build that tower. He didn't want to cut the round stone.
Now, Leo, would these stones have been picked up? This is the Richter house. Would they have been quarried or they been picked up by the creek?
I'm thinking that was quarried stone.
Okay.
Now, just out past that, where Ed Glay used to live near Blue Hole Creek on 278, there was an old stone quarry that many of the stones for the old houses was quarried out of that. I've forgotten the name of the people that had that quarry, but they quarried stone and sold them for many of the buildings around Cullman. And in particular, the stones like over the windows, the lintels, and the window sills and so forth, they would quarry them out and cut them square.
And where did you get your sand back then when you were doing your mortar?
Well, we got some of the sand from, we went down Culpeper Road down to Blue Hole Creek and shoveled it from the sides of the creek. And later on, we got it from different places. Bittner Brothers started selling sand, and they got it out of the Tennessee River, and it was a better grade of sand. And
People now that go to Lowe's to get all their supplies to do a project don't realize that back then there wasn't a Lowe's or anything. Like you say, Bittner's probably was the first place you could buy sand. Prior to that, you went and dug your own.
Right, right.
Now, Dr. Bill, Dad would go over down, he would go down to Section Creek, which is.
Yeah, we got sand there too from Section
That was
Creek. It
really
was a good place.
sand, yeah.
Yeah.
He would haul it there.
Database and all the current vault homes that are still standing now.
What was the question?
Is there a database, a current database where all of the existing rock buildings are now?
You're looking at it.
No, I'm talking about one that everybody would have access to, just other than your memory. My memory's really short and I'm nowhere near.
We got a program that Leo did that I've got those houses. I guess that's as much of a registry of it as we got, I guess, Leo.
Well, we didn't by any means go over all of them. Buildings and jobs we did. Actually, Dr. Bill and I were riding along when he prepared that program, and I said, I built the wall in front of that house. I don't know who lives there now, and he said, my son-in-law.
Till the tornado blew it away.
Yeah.
But your point is well taken as far as documenting.
I have a gentleman from Illinois Historical Society that came down about a month ago, and he was working on a database for Mesker Ironworks. Mesker now is like iron doors, but they sold iron store franges. So like the Hoehn factory, that's one of them. There's another one in town, but it's a national database, and basically what that means is they went on Google Maps, like you and I did, and every place that there was a building that was standing, they marked it, and every one where they knew that there was a building that used to reside, they marked it to in a different color, and then they saved that database as a link, and so anybody, if all they had to do was just type in stoneworks, home building, stuff like that in Google, and it would take you to that map for everything that's on there. And I thought that would be an excellent idea
Greg?
to document.
Many years ago, I got this Audell information, builder's guidebook, and you take a course on stonework, and as I was reading it, found out that there's a lot of things I knew about stone they didn't have in this building, or in this book, so, it didn't really help me all that much, it just helped me learn the names of the different styles of stone, but.
Learn to call what you've
Yeah.
been doing.
Broken ashlar or rubble random or whatever. My house is rubble random. Crazy work. I live on 278 East, just past the water filter plant, the rock house on the right, across from Goodman's place.
Okay, I think for the sake of time, we're gonna turn back over to Dan, and let Dan wrap it on up here.
Okay, and I wanna tell Julie how much I appreciate her doing that map for us. I mean, that was amazing to us when we did that, and to realize that just 2/10 of a mile. You know, I'm not, I would have thought, man, you had to drive around 278 way off up here somewhere in the school, but it's just up the hill. And that's all his land. But this is the section here, when I went out there and talked to Father Victor, Victor Clark this week, and he took me on a little tour. This was the original, of course, it's added on now, you got building around it, but I got a book. This is the original building of St. Bernard. This it was one square building. It was built in 1891, and Mr. Hoehn, and this also comes by his great granddaughter, that George Charles Hoehn did the rock work on this building, on the original building. He was a member of the Catholic Church here in Cullman, and it's my understanding that he would play musical instruments in the church. And didn't he sing? Yeah.
He had an operatic voice.
Okay, yeah.
He was considering, when he was in Sandwich, he was considering to go to work for the Chicago Opera or to come to Cullman.
He was a very talented man, in addition to being a rock mason. So he was a imported early German settler when we think of Cullman as being a German colony. And I think this, to me, is, I've been involved in history a long time and enjoyed it, but finding out that I work and live 40 hours a week in a old German home, one of the first in Cullman history, that I'm talking about the German part. I'm not talking about before the German settlement, but and one of the original, I say original, I know it wasn't one of the 5 10, but 1876 to me, one of the original German settlers. And he received personally 2 letters himself from John Cullman. He was one of the early German settlers to actually be personally invited by John Cullman to come to Cullman. And he came, and like the gentleman here mentioned, John Cullman was looking for different talented people, rock masons, different trades to come. And he got a good one in George Charles Hoehn. I think he helped build something over in the what we call the little holler over here on 278. Wasn't there something there that I think it was something he said he worked on over there as well. But anyway, he was a very important early settler of Cullman County, and I mean of the city of Cullman. And every time we think of Cullman being a German settler, we now have information that I certainly didn't have before on the Hoehn family and their contribution here. And go back to the rock house just a minute, though. Of course, the Richter homes also, the Richter home and the Hoehn house out here on, Convent Road are certainly two of the earliest German-built homes that's still left in Cullman County. And you see the rock work, it just, this would, today would be two of the earliest authentic German-built homes that's left standing in Cullman County. And, the two of the early German families, in William F. Richter and George Charles Hoehn. And
I think we need to introduce the family
Okay,
and ask them for
gonna
their
just
input.
introduce yourselves.
I'm Brian Hoehn,
From Fort Worth.
from Fort Worth. My great-grandfather, Albert T. Hoehn, was the first one of the Hoehn children to be born here in Cullman. So he grew up his whole life in that house. Go ahead.
I'm Carl Hoehn. My granddaddy was Ferdinand. He's the one sitting on the end with big old hands. Well, he left there and went to Birmingham to live, and he built all those buildings down in Birmingham. He was a bricklayer. That's why he called himself a bricklayer. Not a, what was y'all other thing you were saying? Stonemason, yeah.
You know the names of some of the buildings he did in Birmingham?
Yeah, but I just can't remember them now. It was one I was just as a kid when he was telling me about it, and I really didn't pay it, but I knew what he said, but I didn't
Well, we
get the
never
name.
Until we get older,
Yeah.
then we find out
Yeah.
it's important.
This is wife Carol.
Yeah, I'm here.
Now, do you live here?
I live on the lake,
We live in Cullman now.
down on the lake, we built in 94. Yeah, but I was born here then. I'm a common girl.
I'm John Anthony Thomas. I'm a grandson of Mary Ellen Cohen and Paul Schlosser. If you recall any of that. I live here in the old homestead. I got back from California about 2 years ago after a 30-year stint in the military. So, but I was here my whole life.
Has it changed yet?
Huh?
It hasn't changed yet.
Actually, it has.
And you're the great-grandson of the original.
Your grandmother was my boss when I was finishing my 1 year at St. Bernard. And she's a hard taskmaster, but she got it done correctly. Yes, I worked with her for a long time.
Anybody have any more questions?
Do we know have any idea how many of the old stone homes
I don't know.
We have-
That would be interesting to know.
it would?
Well, I guess we can go ahead and dismiss, and I want to thank everybody for coming.
Man, we appreciate you putting the program together. Thanks, sir.